Let's see here. I will ask Mr. Langreich today if there was proof of notification because he issued the agenda out. I see here.
There was, Mr. Chair.
Let's see here. We've got, I just want to make sure we have everyone in attendance. So we've got Supervisor Luck, I see, Supervisor Seep, Cosgrove. I'm just looking to see if, yep, Supervisor Severson's here as well. So we have everyone, so we have a quorum, we can conduct business. So we've got a 9-point agenda in front of us for a motion to approve the agenda.
This is Chad. I'll move.
Second, Melissa.
Okay, we've got a motion by Supervisor, second by Supervisor Luck. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Good afternoon.
Okay, just want to make sure. Yeah, I think I heard one aye. I saw some other people touching buttons, so I think we're okay. So we have an agenda. So let's see here. We've got the minutes posted on the website. Just scroll through those. So looking for a motion on that one as well to present or to approve those.
Make that motion. It's Melissa.
Okay.
I'm at second motion.
Okay, we got a motion by Supervisor Luck and a second by Supervisor Seep. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, the minutes are approved. I'm gonna, I think, reorder things just slightly here. Skip agenda item number 5, and we'll go into agenda item number 6. So I've got a few items that I brought forward for today's agenda. Just thinking of different things that, in this example, I thought maybe it'd be good if our committee started bringing some just kind of positive community-oriented resolutions forward. I got another idea that another supervisor mentioned to me that I'll bring under agenda item number 8. But with this one, I thought, you know, there's different months around the year where we celebrate different things, and I know that February is Black History Month. So thanks to, I think her first name is Crystal. I think it's Crystal Sutton. I could be mistaken. She's the staff person who runs the history room at the library. It's the Richland County History Room. And I'm pretty sure because our taxes, county taxes go toward funding various libraries around the county, that we do help with the history room. And
What happened, Dad?
Chair Murphy Lopez, if you can hear me, you're lagged out and you've broken off contact.
can you guys hear me okay now?
I can hear you now, Sean.
Oh, you can? Okay. If there are problems again,
Yes, we missed Mr. Chairman, we probably missed a paragraph.
Okay. So I was just mentioning that the Richland County History Room did this research, and I just wanted to thank Crystal. I believe her name is Sutton. Ms. Sutton did a lot of this research. I wrote the cover letter, but she pulled together a lot of the information in the attachment. I actually didn't know that we had much African American related history until she pulled this down. I actually found a post that she had on Facebook on the Richland County History Room's website. So I thought it'd be good to, feature some local. Looks like a lot of it's from the 1800s. Richland Center, has probably been mostly white, but there has been a long presence of African Americans going back to the Civil War in Richland County. Can you guys hear me okay still?
Yes, and thank you for doing this.
Are you moving on?
Yeah,
All right.
really interesting. I didn't know that the guy's name, Benjamin Butts, he lived in Richland Center and actually worked where Los Amigos is at right now. He was a waiter there, and then he went on to Madison, and his son went on to be the first African American Badgers football player. And this guy worked in the state assembly. He was the only African American in 1877. Just a lot of interesting stuff. He didn't have a long history here, though. The bowlers, that gentleman right there, he was a barber in Richland Center, is what the Richland County History Room has gotten to us. And he had several generations of his family living here back then. So you can see some of the notes people took, and some of the language, of course, is a little outdated on how we refer to Black people now.
It's very faint, yeah, very low.
But it's just kind of interesting. So anyway, I got a resolution that I just drafted up for consideration for the committee.
Look at these pictures. Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead, Supervisor Seat.
Indicating a resolution, a motion on the resolution?
Yeah, to go to the county board.
Yes, I happily support this and would make the motion just to add to, after my motion and second, I would like to add a minute or two, no, excuse me, a sentence or two to the discussion.
Okay, sounds good. So we got a motion by Supervisor Seat.
Chad will second.
And second by Supervisor Cosgrove. Okay, Supervisor Seat, you've got the floor.
Yes, really pleased about this. It's such a significant history of our county, which has sort of been kind of forgotten or overlooked. In the community of Lloyd here in the town of Willow, there was a very significant settlement of Black families. And presently there is a cemetery just north on 58 of the village of Lloyd, where most of the original settlers and many of their descendants are buried. Sadly, all the Black families who lived in Lloyd are now gone, though one of the descendants lives in the town of Westford, which we're very proud of. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your doing this.
Oh, yeah, of course. And maybe we can get some of that language added in there about the settlement out in Willow Township. I wasn't aware of that, but yeah, the more information we can get, I think the better. So, any other comments or thoughts? I'll go ahead and take a vote. So all those in favor of the resolution and sending it on to the county board, please say aye.
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 Okay, anyone opposed? That motion carries. So the next agenda item is discussion and possible action regarding county board size and committee functions and structure. So I prepared this one as well. I spent quite a bit of time on Monday or Tuesday doing some research, and just going to run through that, and then I'd like to open it up to all four other committee members to get thoughts on this. So here today we've got a motion, a two-part motion: one, to receive and file information on the county board size, and then two, to develop a survey asking county board members to give input on their preference for the future size and organization of the county board. So last month we, at the county board, established a timetable for drawing supervisory districts during the redistricting process that is going to create our boundaries for the years 2022 through 2031. And one of the first is to determine the size of the county board. And we had that determined for the months of February and March. I just should step back a little bit. I know there were some questions last time from Supervisor Seep and perhaps others about the timetable based on census data. And since last month, the Census Bureau did issue a revised timeline that pushed things back further. There's actually going to be a webinar that the Counties Association is going to give next Tuesday, February 9th. Supervisor Luck forwarded that to me, and I know that myself and Ms. Newkirk from the zoning office plan to attend that just to learn about what the implications of that date are. But in general, I think, the more that we can get our ducks in a row, the real important date, as long as things do continue on for this year, assuming they do, is December, because that's when people start filing for running for county board seats for April of 2022. So we're big pictures. We're really looking to get district on by then, so it's clear about what district people would be filing in if they choose to run for April 2022. So anyway, that's a little background. The report, it's got a high level view of how supervisory districts are created, comparisons of our county to other counties of similar size. And I'll just run through the rest of it as we go through the report. So Mr. Langrick, if you just want to pull up the information. It's not really a report, actually. I called it that. But so this map right here, I pulled this down from our GIS website. And this shows the different supervisory districts in the county. And what I did is I took the old resolution from 2011. This is the one that Ms. Newkirk worked on with Mr. Kolstead back when he was leading our county's effort to do redistricting out of UW Extension. And what they did is they came up with populations for each district. So I put those populations in there. And these populations, basically what they did is they took the county's population after the 2010 census, which was 18,000. They divided it by 21 seats, and then they got an average of 800, roughly 60 people per district. And then you can see they range from 829 up in District 1 to 888 down in the other corner of the county. And there's some technical stuff in here. This is just stuff that I picked up from the Wisconsin Counties Association Redistricting Handbook. But basically they say that you can't have more than a 10% deviation, or you shouldn't, based on past precedent for making sure districts are roughly equal. So you could have a range or a variation of about 80, what does it say here, 86 people. And we currently have a range of 58 people. So that's why the lines get, sort of divided. And if you actually go to the next page, this is the population by municipality. And you can see there's almost no municipality. Lone Rock is the only exception that is within, that it's very close to that 858 number. So that's why different municipalities have to be combined or split up in order to get to that roughly equal size for all the county supervisory districts. Now, there are some exceptions, like District 1, if you combine Viola and Forest Township, you get to that number. So it almost looks like there's just one municipality, but of course there's two. And then similar for Supervisor Seep's District 4, if you add Westford with Cazenovia, you get to that 800 some number. So
yes, we're large metropolis out here.
Yeah, you guys are quite the metropolis, yes. So in order to get to the point where we're redrawing districts for the years 2022 to 2031, we need to determine how many seats we'd like so that we can figure out how to combine and split different municipalities around the county. So if you scroll down just a little bit further, So what I did is I just grabbed a map. Yeah, you can go to that next page. So I grabbed a map. This is from UW Extension. This shows how many county board supervisors are in each county across the state. And there's a current number and a maximum number. And for counties that are less than 25,000 in population, which would be that very light peach color, the 21 is the maximum allowed. So that's what's in parentheses in each county. And then the current number comes before the number in parentheses. So like if you look at Richland, it says 21, and then in parentheses, it says 21, because we are at the maximum. But like if you look at Crawford next door to us, they have 17 county board members, and of course they can have 21 as well because of where their population is less than 25,000. Then if you go to page 4 in this document, so I took all those 26 counties that have a population of 25,000 or less, and I averaged the number of supervisors in those counties, and that average comes to 17. And then I also looked at the number of constituents. So that's taking the population and dividing it by the number of supervisors to show the average number of constituents served by each. County is a little less. It's more like 800. The chart that just provides it in another visual format to show that there are 8 counties that are at the maximum of 21 supervisors, and then it drops off going all the way down to 7 in Menominee County. And again, the average is 17. And on the 5, I just organized it in a little bit of a different way. First, I did some figuring. If we assume the population stays at 18,000, and we don't know that to be the case yet, but I just did it for purposes of kind of evaluating how many constituents would there would be per supervisory seat if we changed the number. So if we went down to 19 supervisors, we would be going up to about 950 constituents per supervisor. And then I did it all the way down to 11, and that take us to 1,600 constituents per supervisor. So that's almost doubling what we have now. And then this next chart just shows Waushara County has, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but it has the most constituents per supervisor out of all the small counties in Wisconsin at 2,200 and change. And then the county with the least number of constituents per supervisor is Florence County at 300. And then we're in between. So if we did change, you can kind of see how we would be moving up in this chart. And then on page 6, the other issue, I know there's a lot of issues with reducing the number of supervisors, but I just gathered information on 2 issues. I think this issue about committees is probably one of the more common ones that I've heard about since we started talking about this a couple of years ago, at least that I remember. So the question is, if you have fewer supervisors, how many committees will they have to serve on? So I first worked on answering the question of how many committees on average do each of us serve on right now. So what I did is I went to various websites and I figured out what were the number of meetings we had in 2020 for each committee. And then I looked at the number of supervisor committee seats on each committee, and then the number of meetings that would be happening. If you take the number of meetings I went to, the number of meetings Supervisor Severson went to, Supervisor Seep, say on this committee, if you go down to rules and resolutions, we had 11 meetings in 2020. So that means there were 55 supervisor meetings, I called them. So finance and personnel has the most number of supervisor meetings because we have seven of us, 19 meetings last year. That's 133 supervisor meetings, kind of making that term up. But anyway, if you add all these down at the bottom, and there are mistakes in this, I know, because the websites aren't always accurate. It's just a rough estimate. We had 280 meetings where we had county board supervisors going to the meetings last year. We have 110 seats that we fill, and the average number of meetings each of us goes to each month, or did back in 2020, was 5. And if you were to reduce the number of supervisors down to 19, and if we kept all the committees the same, didn't change anything, it would be 6 meetings a month. And if you went down to 17, it'd be 6.5 meetings. 15 would be 7 meetings. 13 would be 8.5 meetings. And then 11 supervisors would be 10 meetings. So the demand on each person and the number of meetings they'd be going to each month would increase. So the last thing I pulled into this informational document was some counties have organized their committees and boards and commissions in different ways. Sometimes it's related to a reduction in the number of supervisors, and sometimes it's not. So I've got 3 different examples here. In Iowa County, they have combined many of their committees into what they call standing committees, but I kind of like to think of them as consolidated committees. So it means instead of having like say a separate land conservation committee and a zoning committee, they combine those with the public works committee. You can see that on the far right-hand side. So in Iowa County, they have not reduced the number of supervisors. They have 21, and their maximum 21. If you scroll down to the next chart here, I think this next one is from, if you go one page up to Monroe County. Monroe County they have 16 supervisors. Their maximum is 31 because they're above 25,000 in population. But what they've done is they've combined their committees into, it looks like, 11 standing or consolidated committees. And they just did a reduction pretty recently at 5 years. They must have had a referendum or something like that, because I think it was between the censuses. And then lastly, Washington County. This is another county, I believe, that has reduced their county board, and I don't know if it was related to the consolidation in committees. Here you can see they've consolidated their committees. So I'm sure their committee meetings are longer than ours, but they have fewer committees. So with that, I'll stop talking and turn it over to other people to give their thoughts.
I guess I'll start, huh?
Yeah, sounds good. Go ahead, Supervisor Luck.
I was waiting for Don.
You got to go first.
Well, first, thank you for presenting so much wonderful data to try and get a handle on what this all means and what kind of impacts it could potentially have. I think this is all incredibly helpful. And I did spend some time looking at it earlier. I mean, at this point, I don't really have an opinion. I mean, I definitely don't have interest in spending more time in committee meetings. I feel like I spend a lot of time already, either in the meeting or getting ready for the meetings. I can't quite wrap my head around how you get business done with 6 different committees, all having to get through that in one meeting. But I certainly am open to the possibility of combining and those things. So I guess I don't really have anything helpful to add, other than I think this is a really good place to start the conversation, and that I need a little more time to actually digest it all.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure, thank you. Supervisor C?
Yes, thank you. Appreciate your project here. It's excellent work, and I appreciate Melissa's comments as well. My initial reaction to this is merely scratching the surface. If our population remains the same, which I think it will, I don't think there's going to be a significant deviation from 10 years ago. And if the two factors of consideration are one, the number of meetings, and the other, the number of board members, the cost of the number of board members being reduced is insignificant to the county's overall budget, while at the same time reducing the number of members is going to increase the workload of the various members. I don't think it's going to make a nickel's worth of difference in terms of productivity or economy to reduce the size of the board. You will still, your cost per meeting is going to exist whether you have more meetings with less people or less meetings with more people. It's not a nickel's worth of difference. We have a scarcity of talent in the county, mostly because we have a lot of people who don't care to serve on the board. We are very fortunate now that we have some very capable and talented people, young people younger than I, who are serving on the board and who have made a tremendous contribution. Particularly in the last few years, we have made significant progress in terms of budget management, administration, personnel management. We've got some excellent people of high professionalism in our three entities of human services and highway and overall administration. We've done that with 1 county board members, and it was a hell of a lot of work, a lot of committee meetings by a lot of good, dedicated, smart people like Melissa and yourself and many others. So I think we need to be deliberative and thoughtful and careful before we consider changing the size of the board. And let's see how this works. We said that we would, because we're having an administrator, that would be an excuse to reduce the size of the board. We'd save some money. We may not save money by reducing the size of the board because we at present have not adequately staffed administration. There's much more help needed there, much more organization needed there. It's going to take another year to settle that in. And it's going to take all of our help assisting the administrator in getting the board's arms wrapped around all of the problems that we have before us. We have the pandemic upon us. We know not our future economically. We have many capital expenditure challenges before us. We need all the help we can get, all the talent we can get. We have it now. Let's not reduce it. Those are my initial observations. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor C. Mr. Cosgrove, Mr. Severson, would either of you like to speak on?
Be curious to what the all-around cost would be to actually pursue looking into this and actually following through with it, to the county as well, on top of all time and effort we've already put into this. So I guess that would be a question I had. What would we be looking at in terms of cost for an all-around package to even explore what you're discussing here?
Do you mean, Supervisor Cosgrove, do you mean that it'd be nice to know what's our current, say, what are we spending currently? What would we be spending if we had 19 or 17 or down to 11 supervisors per year? Is that what you mean?
I mean, that's part of it, but I think the cost of actually going through with reducing, doing research, spending the time to redistrict and figure out who lays where and so on and so forth.
I see. Well, we are required by law to go through the redistricting process.
Right.
And the way they say it is that you have to wipe the slate clean every 10 years. That's how the handbook says it. So we can't really assume that any lines are going to stay the same.
Sure.
Because, the way, this is a little in the weeds here on this, but they lay it out by census block. So I looked up my part of the county. I live in a block. Usually we think about blocks being in cities, but they even do it in the country. I live in a block that's going to have 3 people in it. And so, because I know, it's on our road and we've got one neighbor and I can kind of see how many people live there. So as Newkirk gets all the data from the Census Bureau, we're basically going to be drawing things block by block. That's how they did it 10 years ago, I believe. That's how we'll be doing it this time around. So no matter what, we have to do the work.
Go through that part of the process.
What was that?
Yeah, to go through that part of the process, we're obligated to do that. Yeah.
So there's no extra cost, is what I'm trying to say. If
Right.
we say we want 17 supervisors, 11, 21, whatever the number is, there's no extra cost. We just divide the population by that, and then that's the number we're looking for ideally in each district. So we
Sure.
already have to do the work. Is kind of where I'm going with it.
Gotcha.
So there's no extra cost that way. If you were referring to cost as it relates to what Supervisor Seep was mentioning, I personally think he's roughly on the right track. I think it's going to be negligible, the cost difference. That's why I didn't spend any time thinking about it, because you'd probably have fewer supervisors, but they'd be going to more meetings. It's probably going to wash out in the end, so.
Chair, can I ask?
Yeah, let's just check with Supervisor Severson and see if he has anything to add.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to reducing the size of the county board, but I am very hesitant right now without exploring more options and knowing more of the facts. And it just seems like we got a pretty good county board right now. And we got a lot of real interested people that are doing more work than what I seen my first 2 years on the county board. And I'm just worried that if we reduce the size, it's going to be even more work, like Melissa said. And even you, Sean, you're putting in a lot of effort on doing stuff too. And that's going to make it almost like a full-time job for you and for some of us. And that could be a little bit difficult for people who want to serve their community, but don't want to spend the time that is needed on it. That's just my kind of concern on it. But
Thank you for sharing your concerns and thoughts. Supervisor Luck?
My question is, in all of the research that you've done and I don't know if you've actually talked to other counties, but what is your impression as to reasons why boards decide to reduce the number? Like, what is the overarching reasoning behind having fewer supervisors? Is it monetary, or is there something else?
I'm not 100% sure the reasons, and I really had to step back and think myself. I was kind of in this a couple of years ago, and I had to ask myself, reduced in size, like what's the problem that we'd be trying to solve? I know that historically the sizes of our county boards in Wisconsin have been decreasing. I don't know where I saw it. There was some historical note that actually each township used to have a county board plus, they added others, and so the county boards just typically used to be a lot bigger than they currently are. I think that was in Marathon County. They were just looking at this in the past couple of months and decided not to reduce their county board. But so I think historically we've been very heavy on representation, and it's been less and less, especially since 2006 when the state legislature and Governor Doyle passed that one act where there could be a referendum once a year, and there was a big flurry of change then. That's a good question. When I really am kind of trying to think about it, like how much work is there that needs to be done, and how many people do we need to get the work done, the committee work? I think for me, that's the really big issue. The size of constituents don't seem to be as much of a, if it's 850 versus 1200, I don't know if we're going to see much of a difference there, personally, but it's that committee work that I think would change. And, part of my thinking, this isn't answering your question, but, and I think about my impression being on the county board and working on committees, there are some committee meetings I go to, and I'm not sure that the committee meeting needed to happen. And in the consolidation of some committees, because sometimes I think we go to committees and we pay some bills, and which I don't think we're going to be doing long term. Looking into the next decade, we're probably going to be making that change. Stuff that, just to be real specific, they're usually small departments. I've been on 3 of those committees where it just doesn't seem like we do very much, so that's tends to be why I think, do we need to have all these meetings? Like, can some of these be consolidated, and would that relate to the number of board members we would need? But I wouldn't want to reduce it very much, because like you guys are mentioning, I mean, it does take a lot of work once you get on the board and you see, all the meetings you go to and preparing for the meetings. I mean, that's definitely the most work there is, and we'll be here to, yeah, those are my thoughts. I'll stop.
Sorry, can I have one more comment?
Go ahead. Yep. Go ahead.
So do you have any idea what the history in Richland County is? Is there a number of supervisors? Has it always been 21, or has it increased over time or decreased? Or I guess it can't have increased over time, but has it been less than 21? So that's a question.
I don't know. Does anyone on in this meeting know the answer to that?
I've been under the impression one time that, like you said earlier, that each township had a representative. And then at some point along there, they got rid of those I think it was the town chairman that were also a member of the county board. So if we got 16 townships, I would assume it was 16 at one time, but then it may have gotten raised to 21 somewhere on the line.
Mr. Chairman.
Interesting.
Okay, Supervisor Seat. Yes,
I'm honored to be behind Ms. Luck and Mr. Severson. My knowledge is limited, but you're correct that every town chairman was automatically a member of the town board, the county board. In addition, a representative from the incorporated villages was also on the county board. Plus, there was representation for the city of Richland Center based upon aldermanic districts. So I believe there was a significantly larger county board before contraction. And I don't know when the contraction occurred. I would like to offer a comment on another matter, though, with respect to the whole idea of analyzing the size of the board and the number of committees whenever it's appropriate. Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead, carry on. We're listening.
Oh, okay. I think that we need the time to see how we behave and how the county operates over a period of 1 or 2 years with regard to the function and structure of committees, with regard to its relationship to administration. And once we have absorbed the experience of 2 years and collected the data associated with that experience empirically, I think we can make a more objective decision with regard to what size board we need, whether or not we need to reorganize committees or consolidate committees. I think we need that empirical experience, and we need our decisions need to be data based. I think we don't have enough data now. First of all, we don't even know the number of people. We might know that, but the number of people is not the big issue. We may require a small adjustment in the lines tentatively. In 2 years, we could have a referendum if the board came up with a proposal to reduce its size and change its structure in terms of committees. That can be done anytime, but we are required to review, and there is not much of a requirement to make significant changes at this time. If we choose that we're going to have 21 members, then it's probably not going to change it hardly at all. The last time the lines of one district were changed, and mostly for political reasons. With regard to Ms. Luck's question about why did other counties decide to either reduce their size or consolidate committees, a lot of that is political, and a lot of it has to do with the desire on the part of some people to consolidate power. Another is that people believe that professionally and administratively they can have a more efficient county. I think it's a to each his own sort of phenomenon. But we have a new administrator, and he can be helpful to us in working with us to develop a plan for based upon analysis and data. We don't have the experience to make an objective decision. We need time and data. That's enough for me.
And one comment I want to add is that we may find out next Tuesday that there may be a possibility that redistricting gets delayed for 2 years. And if that is the case, we will have a natural built-in ability to do what you're suggesting, to look at how we're operating differently with the administrator form of government. So I just want to mention that I think some of that's to be determined. So I think
I didn't realize I was so premonitioned.
I'm not sure if it's going to happen, but I think the email alluded to it. The webinar did.
Don,
So.
this is Carrie.
Yeah, go ahead, Supervisor Severson. Yep.
I like doing a lot of history work, and so anyway, I have a book at home that I printed out and I gave to Tom Rizlo because it mentions about how Pine Valley came to be, and it was a county board proceedings from 1897. I have a copy of it, and I'm not at home right now, but I knew the website where to go look at it, so I'm on it right now. And the Board of Supervisors at that time, let me count here. Looked like it to be 20 at that time, and it was one person from Aiken, Bloom, Buena Vista, Dayton, Eagle, Forest, Henrietta, Ithaca, Lone Rock, Marshall, Orion, and Richland. and then 3 wards in the city, and then Richwood, Rockbridge, Sylvan, Westford, and Willow.
Okay, so pretty size. That's great. Yeah, and if you have any other history you can dig up, maybe we can take a look at that at the next meeting, or that'd be great. We could also ask the history room if they could look into it, or maybe Clerk Wasik has some old documents that might tell us how many supervisors we used to have. I believe it was in the 1960s when the change was made. They mentioned in Marathon County. So I don't know if there was a state law change back then. So maybe if we just go back to the cover sheet, we can just go ahead and dispose of the motion here. So I appreciate everyone sharing their thoughts. So we got a 2-part motion here, and maybe let's take this separately because we might have some different discussion on both of these. So looking first for a motion to receive and file the information that we digested today on the county board size.
You want to do them separately, or are we going to do one
Let's
motion?
do them separately so we can talk about the survey separately.
All right, I'll make that motion.
Okay, so motion by Supervisor Luck.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Cosgrove. So all those in favor
Discussion,
of the motion? What's that?
discussion.
Oh, go ahead. Yes, absolutely. Supervisor Sheep.
I'm looking here for the specific wording of that motion.
The motion is to receive and file information on the county board size.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. So then the second part of the recommendation here, to develop a survey asking county board members to give input on their preference for the future size and organization of the Richland County Board. So I put this in here because I don't think it's, it's not really probably worth our time to dig too deeply in this if there's no interest from the rest of the county board. Obviously, there's some education that becomes part of it, or people may not know what they think, but I'm putting this forward as an idea to just get a sense of where people are at so that this committee can consider the thoughts of the whole county board.
Mr. Chair,
Yep, Supervisor Luck, go ahead.
who's going to develop the survey?
Mr. Turk,
I don't know. I could certainly develop a survey and bring it back to this committee for approval. It's kind of a sensitive topic. So as Supervisor Seat mentioned, this could be about consolidation of power. And so I think we need to be pretty transparent in how we do this. So I'd be happy to do that if that's.
Okay, I just wanted to
amenable.
make sure that before we make the motion that we're clear about who exactly we're asking to do this.
Well, it would actually, I think my suggestion would be to have it be approved by this committee. So I think it would be the committee, but I would be willing to develop the survey because I've thought about it. And of course, people could share ideas. We can make it all of our survey, but I could at least develop the first draft.
All right, I would make that motion.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Luck,
a second with discussion.
second by Supervisor Seep. So go ahead, Supervisor Seep.
It's a significant issue, and I think it's going to require not just discussion, but an educational process with the board. And I believe that we need to be as democratic as possible by soliciting board input and the talent of others on the board. I'm not speaking of myself, of course, but of others. And Mr. Turk has expressed for a long time the desire to contribute to board education. And this is an area where I think he could be most helpful, along, with working with our administrator who can bring us a lot of experience and expertise as we deal with this issue. we certainly don't want it to be introduce controversy or divisiveness to the board, and I think that's why we need a proactive board education process.
Well,
Talk-
perhaps we could invite Supervisor Turk to our next meeting and or get his feedback before it even comes back to this committee. That wouldn't violate any quorum issues. So that's a good idea. So thank you for that. Other people's thoughts on the idea of a survey? Any other committee member thoughts on it? Okay, let's go ahead and take a vote on the motion to develop a survey. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you everyone for the discussion on that. Going back up to agenda item number 5, County Board Rule number 18 regarding the taking and recording of minutes. So Mr. Langreich, if you could pull up the cover sheet on this one, I need to refresh my memory after those two discussions. So this one, bringing forward the reason for me bringing this forward is that I noticed when I was going through state statute 59.23, which is the county clerk statute, that the county clerk, this is a quote from state statute, little out of context, we can look at the whole thing, but has the authority to, quote, keep and record true minutes of all the proceedings of the board in a format chosen by the clerk, including all committee meetings, either personally or through the clerk's appointee. Now, this came up in my mind because, you know, with the transition we're going through, the roles and the duties are, you know, there's a lot in flux right now. And one question has come up in my mind about the taking of minutes. I look at that statute language and then I compare it to the rule that we have, Rule 18, and it says that currently, this is the struck out section that I've been proposing to strike out, but it's not stricken out yet. So each committee composed of a majority of supervisors shall appoint a person who shall take minutes, who shall not be a supervisor. In the event of the absence, the committee chair shall appoint a person to take the minutes. And then skipping that underlined sentence, the appointed person shall within 14 days after the meeting type up the proposed minutes of the meeting and file them with the county clerk. Now, if we go to the statute 59.23, there should be was there an attachment with this, Mr. Langreich? Okay, great. If we could go to that, I just want to be real clear about where this came from in the clerk statute. If we go to board proceedings, I'm just going to read this whole thing, and we have to pay special attention to punctuation. I've learned as I've read and reread this several times. There are semicolons in here separating different sections. So it says here that the clerk shall, under board proceedings, act as clerk of the board at all of the board's regular, special, limited term, and standing committee meetings. Then there's that semicolon. Under the direction of the county board chair or committee chair, create the agenda for board meetings. Another semicolon. Keep and record true minutes of all the proceedings of the board in a format chosen by the clerk, including all committee meetings, either personally or through the clerk's appointee. And then another semicolon. And then there's it goes on with a few different things about different special things about filing them and recording votes of different board members. So I was a little confused when Clerk Vlasic mentioned that he no longer wanted to take the minutes for finance and personnel. I was a little bit confused about how to deal with this conflict between state statute, which says that he should he or she, whoever the clerk is, should be appointing, either taking them personally or appointing somebody else. And then what our minutes say, or I'm sorry, what our rules say about minutes, which is that the committee should decide. So to me, it seemed like a conflict, and obviously it takes some cooperation to figure this out. But I thought, because it's unclear now who should be taking the minutes of finance and personnel, is it this committee deciding it, or is it the clerk deciding, appointing somebody else? So looking to get thoughts and reactions from people on this.
Chair.
Yeah, is that
Melissa.
Supervisor Luck?
It is, yeah. So just to be clear, you're not saying that our clerk has to be at every single meeting taking minutes for every single meeting, but in fact that the clerk just would need to officially appoint a person, which presumably would be the same people that are probably taking the minutes that he already doesn't take. That he would officially appoint those people as his designee or whatever, right?
That's correct. I'm saying that the authority, I don't believe, lies with the committees. I believe the authority lies with the clerk based on statute. So that's correct. The clerk would not be taking minutes for every committee. Obviously, say Tammy Kanoy Bender, she takes minutes for our land conservation committee. Well, why would anyone else do it? She already does it. She's part of that department. So, under that method, under the statutory method, the clerk would basically just make that appointment official. And I'm just wondering should our rules reflect that? So yes, you're correct.
What if the clerk wants to pick his person and not have the person that's currently taking that? Does he have that right to do that?
Well, statutorily, it does look like he has the authority. The clerk has the authority to do that. Yes. So the
Okay.
clerk could say, well, yeah, I don't think that person's doing a good job of it. Or they could just say, I think we, or maybe someone will come to him and say, I don't really want to take the minutes anymore. Or I think this person would be better, and then the clerk would be the one to make the final call. But a lot of times I'm sure recommendations are going to come from departments, but yes, you're right. It would be their
Mr. Chairman.
authority. Yep.
Mr.
Supervisor
Chairman.
C, go ahead.
Yes. As kind of a point of information for discussion, there is a difference in terms of requirements between boards, committees, and commissions. There are some commissions that by statute require that the department head or another designated person, an employee within that department, is designated by statute as the executive secretary who will take and keep the minutes of that commission. Generally, with committees, the committees elect a committee secretary for the purpose of succession in the absence of the president and the vice president. And sometimes committees designate one of their members to take the minutes of that particular committee, all of which are to be filed with the county clerk as the office of record. But I think we have to be careful because with some boards and commissions, the statutes provide how the minutes are taken, who takes them, and how they are kept. So we may require a little more legal review before we come down with a rule on this. I know for a fact of one commission that spells out who will take the minutes, and it happened in that case. It's the department head who acts for the commission as its executive secretary.
Can you share what that commission is?
Veterans.
I can, but it's not necessary for this discussion.
I think I just heard someone else say Veterans Commission. That's what I was assuming you meant, but I just wanted to be clear
Well,
here.
I think that's a pretty good guess. My memory
Okay.
doesn't serve me entirely correctly.
Well, I'm assuming that, of course, we should be doing whatever's laid out in statutes, as far as if there are any instances where a commission
Yeah.
is saying who should be the executive secretary. But I do have to say, in our particular case, I think I would trust the clerk to know more than I would trust a lot of us to know. Because
Well, yes, I would certainly trust the clerk to know. No question about it.
yeah, and the change I'm suggesting here is that the clerk make the appointment, not the committee. So in that case, the clerk would then statutorily have to appoint the department head to do it. Am I understanding that correct, Mr. Seep? If the clerk,
I think that
Good.
that would provide for a protocol for uniform standards for minutes, because now they're all over the place.
well, that's the other issue here, and that is another reason I brought this up, is that the statute says that the clerk would choose the format. So basically, then the clerk would be able to say to whoever, I expect that the minutes to be established in this format. That the clerk could provide the guidance on what minutes should. I haven't seen that as an issue myself. I'm assuming maybe others have. So, Supervisor Cosgrove, I see you're unmuted. Not sure if you want to speak up.
No, I didn't have any comment on this. I just left my mute button off, I guess.
No worries.
I got something to say, John. This is Kerry.
Yeah, go ahead, Supervisor Severson.
I've always, I don't know if this is a comment or something for a further discussion, but I've always wondered and had some curiosity as when committees develop their leadership roles and the chair, vice chair, and then we always choose a secretary, and then the absence of the chair and the vice chair to present a quorum, then the secretary would lead the meeting. I'm wondering if maybe that should be changed to a pro tempore. So we would have a chair, a vice chair, and a chair pro tempore instead of the secretary.
Is there another location in our rules where that's spelled out that we elect a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary besides Rule 18? Do you know?
Because to me, it seems like the secretary would be the one taking the minutes, and if we have to follow the statutes, what we should be doing, would that be a legitimate thing where the secretary shouldn't be the secretary, but should be called the chair pro tempore?
Maybe that is the case. First, I was just wondering if we designate that anywhere in our rules about appointing a chair, a vice chair, and a third person. I just see here that the secretary is supposed to take minutes. I don't see anywhere that we have a chain of command. Mr. Langrick, did you lay that out in that roles document that the board approved?
I can take a look back at that, Mr. Chair. Stand by.
Okay, so I don't know about anywhere in that we have to appoint a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary or pro tempore.
No.
That term you used.
I
Do you?
don't think that necessarily is, but when we do create
Okay.
that, we always have a chair and vice chair, and the whole purpose of having the secretary, in my opinion, would be to, in the absence of the chair and the vice chair, to still make a quorum and have a meeting. The secretary then would chair the meeting. Should that title be changed to pro tempore? Chair pro tempore.
And what document would you want to change? Is it the rules of the county board?
I would think might have to be rules of the county board once we agree to change what we're talking about here with the clerk. Because the clerk may not want a supervisor taking the minutes of the meeting. Because there is a committee that I know of, and it's highway, that where the highway commission secretary, as a county board supervisor, and he's appointed secretary by the commission, and he takes the minutes.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Supervisor Luck.
I just wanted to point out that the language is really clear, that it says the board's regular, special, limited term, and standing committee meetings. Nowhere does it talk about commissions, which are generally treated differently. So all of these examples you've kind of been talking about as exceptions, I think it acknowledges that by not mentioning commissions in this statutory language. That's just my thoughts.
Okay, so I think what you're saying is the way the cover sheet is written, or what you're implying here. So the way the cover sheet is written, the blue language in that paragraph where there's an underlined word that says committee, board, or commission minutes shall be taken by the county clerk or their appointee. That's what I was proposing, but what you're saying is
by statute, you should remove the word commission, because that's not in the statutory language.
So it really should just say committee or board minutes shall be taken by the county clerk or their appointee. I see.
Yeah, I mean, you could maybe use the same language. The board's regular, special, limited term, and standing committee meetings is the language in the statute. So maybe that would be the best way to put it. Use the language taken directly from the statute.
And can you, let's see, Mr. Langer, can you pull up that statute and let's just repeat that language after we can see it here? Can you repeat the language, Supervisor Luck?
Yep. So it's under A, board proceedings, it says act as clerk of the board at all of the board's regular, special, limited term, and standing committee meetings. Semicolon.
So you're proposing to take the words regular through standing committee
meetings. Yep.
And substituting that for commission minutes. So I'm going to make an attempt to read what you're saying here. And let's see here. If we could have Mr. Langrick, do you mind pulling the statute back up? Because I've got the cover sheet open on my other laptop here. Okay, so it would say, instead of starting with the word committee, it would say regular, special, limited term, and standing committee minutes shall be taken by the county clerk or their appointee.
Correct.
Did I read that right?
Yep.
I see. Okay.
Because I do think it's important to take the word commission out of there, because I think that's where your exceptions all lie.
Okay. The second sentence that's struck out in the cover sheet, I just am curious if anyone has a problem with that sentence being removed, and I'm going to read it. So the sentence currently says, each committee composed of a majority of supervisors shall appoint a person who shall take the minutes, who shall not be a supervisor. In the event of the absence of the appointed person, the committee chair shall appoint a person to take the minutes for that meeting. The appointed person shall take minutes of all meetings of the committee. It's 3 sentences actually. So each of those have been stricken in this proposal. Does anyone have concerns with having those removed?
The only thing I would say is that I think we still want standards to be upheld. So the question becomes, does the clerk then, when he designates someone, does he give these instructions as far as, making sure that they're filed within 14 days and appointing a person. Do we still need, if their designee can't show up, what does a committee do? They have to contact the clerk to get him to appoint really quickly someone else?
Yeah, I would think that the committee chair would be getting in touch with the clerk and saying, that person can't take the minutes, do you have someone else to appoint, or here's a suggestion for someone, I would think there's got to be some communication with the clerk.
Do you think that
Could we get the
would that be kind of time consuming if you don't know they're not going to be there until you start the meeting? You're about to start the meeting.
Be a little too much, maybe.
Could we get an opinion from County Clerk Vlasak on our discussion?
That'd be great. I
To
know he
help
sent
with-
us
to
an
help with
email
guidance?
earlier. Yep, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman,
Let's let Supervisor Severson ask Clerk Vlasic to give his thoughts. Let's do
Clerk
that first.
Vlasak, this is the Clerk Vlasak, this is Supervisor Severson. Would you be willing to give your opinion of the recommendations that we're bringing forth?
So I'm not seeing him unmute himself. One thing we could do is we could table this and I could have a discussion with the clerk. Or
Mr.
any of us
Chairman,
could.
before your table,
Yep, go ahead, Supervisor Seat.
yes, I've been chomping at the bit to get in here. There are, in addition to commissions, there are boards that have different structures and different statutory authorities. The Human Services Committee is not a committee, it's a board. It has specific authority as a kind of a separate body. Just as the Highway Department is governed by a commission, and the Board of Trustees for Pine Valley. So those people, the clerk in none of those cases takes their minutes. However, their minutes are submitted to his office for record, as I understand it. So I think that term limiting this to committees is good, but you're keeping in mind that you not only are not mentioning commissions, but you're not mentioning boards either. There's a difference between a board and a commission, and there's a difference between a board and a commission and a committee in terms of structure and statutorial history.
Going back to the original problem I had, I wasn't sure who was going to be taking the minutes for finance and personnel. And, I don't want to make it too complicated. I just wanted to be clear who has the authority to make the appointments. It'd be nice if, if our roles were clear.
Mr. Chairman, in the absence of somebody to take the minutes, the chair and the committee can appoint anyone to take the minutes.
I understand that's the way our rules are written currently. Yeah.
Whether they're a supervisor or staff.
Can you repeat that?
Whether they are an employee, a supervisor, or staff, or a department.
Sure.
The chair can appoint whomever. The minutes are taken in behalf of the county, not in behalf of the department.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hearing all this feedback, it might just be best to table it at this point is what I'm suggesting. So I'm going to make a motion to table this while we have a little more discussion offline. Okay, we got a second by Supervisor Seep. Any discussion on the motion to table? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, we're out of the weeds.
Okay, anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries. That agenda item number 8, future agenda items. One that I want to mention was I talked to Supervisor Williamson. I had noticed in Senator Markline's newsletter that Supervisor Williamson's mom had been recognized for being the treasurer for Eagle Township for, I don't know how many years it was. It was several decades. And we talked about the idea of perhaps having resolutions come from this committee recognizing town or municipal staff who have been long serving. So that's one idea for future agenda item coming from me. What about other folks?
Nothing I have that comes to mind right now.
Okay. I see Supervisor Luck shaking her head. Anything from Supervisor Seep or Severson?
What is the county's process on retirees and resolutions for appreciation? Does that come from the department head, or is that something that would come from the administrator?
So I did happen to notice somewhere, I don't know if it was in our county board rules or I saw it somewhere else. They have to have reached a certain number of years. I believe it might be something like 10 or 15. And then those have gone straight to the board, not to the committee. So is your idea to have that on a future agenda?
Yes, there's a few county employees that retired with 30 some years of experience or 30 some years of service to us, and their name never got forth for a resolution recognizing that. So,
Okay, I understand now. Okay, we've got that one down for a future agenda item. Any others? All right, thanks everyone. Let's see. Let's get to adjournment. So, agenda item number 9, adjournment.
I move for adjournment, Mr. Chairman, and I want you to know that I'm very edified by all of the input from the members of the committee. It always elevates me.
Good. I enjoyed these meetings too, so glad to hear you do as well. So let's, the motion would be to adjourn to Thursday, March 4th at 1 p.m. virtually. Is that acceptable to you, Mr. Seep?
March 4th, 1 p.m. That's fine with me.
Okay, so I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Okay,
Good.
a second by Cosgrove. All those in, any discussion?
aye.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we'll see this particular group March 4th. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.